Yeah, this is like, let's just read the categories. High score systems. This is just like laying out the different types of things. Score tests like Oro, where you have a score threshold that you're going for. More on score test systems. I accepted the idea that score test systems are basically the optimal design pattern for strategy games. There are more issues there. Yeah, so category 1, completion systems are incompatible with strategy game design. And that's like, completion is like Super Mario Brothers, but also like roguelikes if you consider the, get the amulet or whatever, the final, complete the game, the goal, which some people do. It's a little bit unclear what the goal in a roguelike is. Category 2, high score systems are a bit more interesting. There are a lot of practical problems with high score systems, ever expanding match length, which we've talked about a lot. Yeah, I think maybe it would be better if we just sort of started from scratch than if we looked at this. But people can look at this if they want. I'll put a link here, maybe, if anyone wants to just search to those words. Okay, so score systems in strategy games. That's really what I want to talk about. Modern score system thinking is more advanced than the old high score thing. Yes? Give me some examples, Hair Machine. Because I'm trying to think of modern games that have a score system. I mean, I think that that Michael Bro started using like a par system, right? But I don't know if he's very representative of the norm either. By modern, I mean what Hop says. Okay, yeah. So like, yeah, it's unfortunate that Hop isn't here actually for this one. We probably should, talk to them about this. But, and actually, if you are familiar with Hop's points, you can maybe make them, Hair Machine. But I want to make my points. What is the problem? What is the problem with something like FTL? I think, yeah, FTL is just like a roguelike, right? Like it just has normal. So we can start the easy stuff, and this is not even getting to the Hop level, but like the easy critique of old style high score systems, ever expanding match length / punished. Player is punished with a suboptimal game or match length for getting good at the game. And really this points to a bigger problem of doesn't allow, I mean, actually, this should be the other way around. Doesn't allow the designer to choose the match length. That's really the issue. And then that kind of leads to that, yeah. Has a score and a binary victory. Yeah, that's true of almost every roguelike, Ryan. Unless you're saying it has a score-based victory. I don't think it does, though. I think it has a binary victory condition and then a score, which is exactly like every roguelike. This is basically a system where you have some point score goal, you just repeat again and again, get a line, etc. Right. So that leads me to my other big problem. Score / points, victory points are by definition out of the system. As in they're really like a tally of times something happened, roughly speaking, in a system. They're kind of like meta. Here Hop would object. What would that objection sound like? Actually, this would go into critique of any score systems in strategy games. We can move this up here. We can move this down here. I think a couple good things. You can have a score that's also a resource in the game. Yes, you can. But I think that like the more incorporated that is, the other would be that just having a score system doesn't really imply anything about how it's implemented. Like I guess maybe responses to claims. So let's make like two pro score claims. Let's do it. Pro score claims. Let's number these so that we can refer to them easily. So one claim was you can have a score that's also a resource in a game. Okay, and we'll respond to each of these. The other would be that just having a score system doesn't really imply anything about how it's implemented. It implies some things about how it's implemented because there's like, score system, it's kind of like cards or it's kind of like health or something. It actually does connote a lot of design things. So like, yeah, like there might be something that we could call scoring, like Go scoring. Is that a scoring system? Probably, yeah, but it's definitely different. So it doesn't apply to all score systems. So maybe I should reword this. Like critiques of score systems in strategy games. And then also there are things that are like, maybe we need to define score. Maybe that's what we need to do. Hop's position is the broader one and not trying to defend traditional or cumulative structures. Let's try to define score. What do I mean by score system? That's a really good idea, I think. Because like, what is the thing that I am being critical of? A integer value, or a numeric value, that is, let's see, that is gained, by the player for taking certain actions, and the goal is really important, because the other part of Hop's thing, like Hop has two different things. The other part of it is about non-binary goals, and that's something I feel even stronger about than this. This is like a thing that I want to talk about because it leads to the binary goal conversation. Let's see. Binary goals. We'll just write a thing here because I want to talk about that later. What do I mean? What is a score system? Help me define it if you have some ideas. So would score be different than victory points in a Euro game? No, that's definitely the same. Score, yeah, see here I even wrote score, points, victory points. Taking certain actions that determine the outcome of the match. I want to say also a numeric value, I almost want to say like greater than, it's like 7 or something. Do you see what I'm kind of getting at there? Like there's some number, let's write like, I don't know, 6 to 10 question mark. That is gained because like, I think if there are systems where, you have to like do 3 things or 5 things. And to me, it feels not correct to call that score. Although it's like, it is arbitrary, but it's also not arbitrary. Let me think here. Score that then gets collapsed to a binary. Are non-binary discrete number of outcomes more like binary or more like score? Right. Non-binary. Wait, I don't know what you mean non-binary discrete number of outcomes. More like binary or like score. You should ask that again in another way. What do you mean by non-binary discrete number of outcomes? So you have like 6 possible outcomes that could happen in the match. I don't know. That sounds. You could win A or win B. Well, that's not binary. So I would say I see what you're saying. I would say, well, so maybe we need to let's talk about binary goals for a second, then maybe we can come back. Maybe this will help clear stuff up. So my feeling is, and I feel like not a lot of people necessarily consciously agree with me on this, but I think a lot of people subconsciously agree with me on this. A goal is inherently binary. It's it's impossible to enforce or clearly delineate a non-binary goal. Like, for examples of non-binary goals are things like survive as long as you can, what's it called? Get as many points as you can, etc. I mean, honestly, those are them. Like, it's always those two. I guess there's like get to the furthest level, get to the furthest level you can, could be one, etc. The problem is that in terms of feedback, so going back to my basic understanding of how strategy games work, you have to be able to like solidly know whether you achieved what your strategy was built to achieve. You always survive as long as you can, right? So with a non-binary goal such as survive as long as you can, it is impossible to know. Let's write "no" in like bold text, and to know. It is impossible to know that you. I'm gonna make that like kind of a keyword sort of here, because to know that you in fact achieved what your strategy was built to achieve, because you always survived as long as you could. This no factor is extremely important because of the sort of like deeply ambiguous nature of strategy games everywhere else. The outcome of the match is the one piece of hard data, sort of hard, inarguable data that gives meaning to the many other game states, dynamics, etc. throughout the match, which were soft, arguable, etc. ambiguous. Right? So to like expand on that a little bit more, a given strategy or a tactic or something, sort of like the quality of it, whether it was good or smart or helpful to you, is maybe always has some ambiguity to it. And then the outcome of the match gives you this one piece of like actual hard data about the actual state of what happened that you can then use to understand and give meaning to these ambiguous things. Because the problem is, on a practical level, Playing a strategy game with a non-binary outcome means that it's very difficult to understand, to like trying to think here. Hey Red Moth, how's it going? I need a minute to drink some water. I ate Spam earlier, so I'm like super dehydrated now. It's the worst. Okay, Hair Machine says, I think the problem with this is, for some reason, you can't really escape from this binary thing of thinking. I'm trying to explain why I can't escape from that. I agree with you. I can't escape from this binary way of thinking about specifically strategy games. And the reason, and this is me trying to explain why I can't. Oh yeah, we have one more day on the game jam if anyone wants to cook something up in a few hours. We have until like midnight tonight. I mean, we can push it back another week. Like, there's no harm in it, really. It's like, but at the same time, I sort of feel like maybe we should just like let it end and then we can like start a new one. But yes, I agree. I can't escape from this binary of thinking about things, because I think that because of how ambiguous strategy games are, they really need that unambiguous ending. So anyway, let's respond more to Hair Machine. A binary win isn't hard data either. It depends on how hard the game was. Well, let me respond to that claim. Formally. Oops. There we go. Okay, I will respond. Response. We assume a rough, as close to a 50% win rate as possible going in. That's just like, the game's not going to work if you are playing against players who are wildly imbalanced against each other. Anything wildly out, anything too far from 50% is just an unbalanced game. So obviously you have to do that. Right, but you can also be a complete novice. Sure, but then you have to be matched against another force that you would have a 50% chance of winning against, even as a novice. Like, there are other novice players. If it's a multiplayer game, there's you can set up a bot, or in a one-player game, you can make something that even a novice has a 50% chance to win. I agree, it gets like kind of hard at the very, 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 very beginning of when players play, because they sort of don't entirely know the rules. But like once they get over that little hump, I think it's fine. So the match alone isn't really telling you anything that's solid. I don't see if I follow that. The match alone isn't telling you anything that's solid. Huh? Why is the match alone not telling you anything that's solid? You lost me there. The match alone is telling you something completely solid. If you had a 50% chance to win and you won, it meant something very solid about what you did in that match. I don't see why you need many matches. Within one match, that's kind of like the whole point here. It's a counterpoint to you. It's a counterpoint to you don't learn anything from survive as long as you can. You don't learn anything from survive as long as you can. Yeah, I wouldn't say you don't learn anything from that. That's not my claim. But let me see. Maybe I overstated myself somewhere here. With the non-binary goals such as survive as long as you can, it's let's be right. Like it's more difficult. I would say much more difficult to know that you in fact achieve what your strategy was built to achieve. It's like sort of arguable. And there's another problem that this reminds me of. Critiques of score and strategy. Yeah, this one. A kind of negotiation about what the goal is takes place with the player, in the player's mind, sort of, throughout the match. And this is one of those things where it's like, I just feel like a score system is much better for like a toy. If I survive 10 days, then I change my strat and survive 15 days next time. Right. But then we also, then in that situation that you described, we have the original problem. Where did it go? This. Let me, I'll just make a note for this. If I survive 10 days and then I change my strategy and survive 15 days, and the response to that is ever expanding match length, and also there's another response in here to this one too. I'm just gonna write like question marks for now. I might actually say a score with a single fixed difficulty is actually harder, clearer data than the result of the match, which you had 50% chance of winning. Okay, so that actually, this question mark and that last comment gets me to my bigger point, which I want to put as the first point here. Like what you're saying, let me actually just copy paste this comment. What Hair Machine just said. Actually, yeah, I'll write this here. I'll keep it. No, that looks bad. Okay. All right. So I want to respond to that specifically. Because there's like this is like the crux of the big thing. So let's describe this situation and make sure we're on the same page here. I might say a score with a single fixed difficulty is harder, clearer data than the result of one match where you had a 50% chance of winning. Like, in a sense, I know what you mean, but there's like, what my feeling is like, there shouldn't be a strategy game where your score is like fluctuating in that way. It's too. Let me see if I can. Wait, didn't I write? Where did I write this? I wrote this down already somewhere. Tally. Yeah, maybe we need to explore this a bit more. Tactical, looping, small arcs. How many times can you achieve the small arc game in a row contest? Like, this is my response to that. Do we believe the purpose of strategy games is to be machines that produce data about how well players play? No, but that's an important part of it. While I agree with Keith on binary goals, this whole line of argument seems completely irrelevant. Well, no, because, you would agree, the Crouch Mode, that strategy games need to give you some feedback at the end, right? And the reason for why they need to give you that feedback at the end is because you need to, like, that's that basic loop of, like, I'm putting input into the system and it's giving me feedback, right? And to me, like, historically, the way we've made games is very much this. You do the game and just keep doing the game. And then at some point it's like, oh, well, I don't know, like after a little while, like it stops and you shut off the game and it's like, how far did you get? It almost has like a contest kind of value to it there. I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, Tetris is a great example of this because like in Tetris, like you can very clearly see that you're doing the same loop over and over and over again. You're building it up and then you get a bunch of lines and you push it back down. You build it up and you get a bunch of lines and you push it back down. That's a really clear example, although I don't know if that's the best example of a strategy game. My own game Oro is a good example, I think, where about a screen and a half or so is basically like a match of Oro, like all of the dynamics come and go, all of the loops and arcs like happen in that time, except for health, I guess. Like you move your position around the map, but like it doesn't really matter. It could be just a one screen game pretty much. Is there not a bit of a false dichotomy here? There's so many strategy games with binary goals that when you look at them, you have this accumulating advantage. I'm not sure I follow that. Yeah, I don't know if I follow that last piece there. But anyway, this is like each move gets you 1% better. And eventually you achieve a winning position. I don't think that's true. I mean, I think so. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. And it's not like all equal, then boom, binary, you win. Like engine improvement. Let me write this one down. Well, actually, I'll just answer this too. Tactical looping small arc contest. So let's in a binary. Let's write this in a binary. Let me see if I can state your thing. Win condition game. Like each move gets you 1% better. My response to this is like, I should write response in all my responses, I guess, to make it more clear. I don't think that's like true. I think the 1% better of a given strategy halfway through a strategy game is very ambiguous and like unknowable. That's the difference. Actually, here's another way of putting my problem here. Tactical looping, small arc. Halfway, here's a good, I'm gonna put this in bold because I think it's important. Halfway through a score-based strategy game, you can literally see exactly how good your strategy is going. How strong your strategy has become, because like your position in terms of like how good you're doing. This is not always completely true, because you could still have like some investment sort of things, and you know you could have like a very yeah, maybe this is an overstatement. I think you can see too clearly exactly how strong your strategy is. I think that's true to the extent that it's score. You know, like I mean that's certainly true. This is certainly true if you already have a higher score than, halfway through the game than your final score last match, as an example. I mean, like there are situations where that's definitely true. It could be anything from completely obvious to completely opaque depending on the design. Sometimes the score payoff is all at the end of a strategy. Score payoff is all the end of a strategy. Right, no, yeah, I was trying to like point that was kind of the point I was trying to make. That's why I sort of pulled this back a little bit. But I still think that this is like at least kind of true. Here's another critique I have of score systems and strategy games. It's boring. It's I think it's and cheap, and easy. It's like this automatic thing. This is separate from the other. It's too direct. That's a good way of putting it. I'm gonna add that. It's boring and cheap and easy. Similar critiques. You can do a little bit better and get a slightly better result. Right. I mean, that's the thing. And I like, I guess that's another thing that Hop and I would argue about. A pro score claim that Hop would make is that let's Hop's argument. You actually get better feedback if you care about feedback with non-binary outcomes than binary ones. I agree that you get more information, but that doesn't mean it's better feedback. In fact, I think it's actually giving you too much information. Too much information and rewarding small minutia. How do you spell that game? That word. That game. Wow. Did I have it right all along? Minutia. Isn't it like that? Tia. Wow, that doesn't look right to me at all. Throughout the match. Too much. And this goes back to like the tactical thing. It's like, it's like at the end of a match, should I have a better score? Like a 1 point better score than last match because of some monster I killed on turn 3? Like this is also, I think I want to bold this because like this is getting at what I'm trying to say. Where can you get this document? It's not shared at this moment. But I will share it after the thing. Welcome to the thing. So I guess is the real argument that having any quantitative value connected to how well you're doing bad. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. And quantitative is a little bit weird because this is why I wrote this like 6 to 10 kind of range thing. Because like when it's like, I find the idea of like, okay, there's like 3, things you have to capture, or like 5 things you have to like do, or, you have to hit 4 of these 6 things or something like that. Like those seem, they seem more like systemic and more structural and less like you're just dumping points into this vat that's outside of the system. How does MMR play into this? I'm not sure it does. For me, MMR is, and ELO and all that is just this. 50%. This one rather. That you make your game, that's the starting place, is that you have a 50% chance to win, that it's a balanced difficulty. That should be like the first step. So this is actually more general than score versus binary. You can have that problem in a binary game. I would be interested to hear more about that. Potentially you could not have it in a score-based game. I don't know about that. Or at least Hop would claim that, which I presume you cannot imagine. True. To be honest, I'm not sure I can either. Some slight devil's advocate here. That's what we need. Thank you. I appreciate it. But can you answer me, Hair Machine? How can you have this problem that I've been trying to describe here in a binary game? Oh, wait. Actually, I know how you can. It's by using a score, because like Oro is a binary game that has a score. But what about a game that doesn't have a score and that has a binary outcome? And that's another thing. Like, we have too few strategy games that do not use score. Like, really too few. It's an extremely underexplored space. So actually, going back to another conversation we had the other day about structure. You know what would be cool, by the way, is I should put these as links in here. Then everyone could access all those show notes anytime they wanted to. But we had that conversation about structure the other day. And points are extremely not structural. I don't know if we still need this, but... let's write this. Extremely not structural. I think that's kind of score is anti-structure because they're all interchangeable. Yeah. All interchangeable. Or like, what's the word? Like fungible or something, right? Turns state into a state blob. Turns state into a completely fungible state blob. Or even worse, a better way to put it, blob. A better way to put it is like turns strategy quality into like, it's sort of like quantifies, and this is something I said that I'm just remembering now, quantifies something which should be more qualitative. Why is quantifies, oh, no, I wanted quantifies, fucker. Which something should be more qualitative. Like melts down the kind of like what's a good word for this? Like ambiguous strategy quality into some number. Yeah, that's all. These are all good thoughts on this topic. Let's see. I wanted to catch up. Abdurmank says, I watched the episode on that subject. I think probably they're referring to structure. I agree with you, Keith. His argument that no one is doing score system right. Oh, my argument that no one is doing score system right. That's not really my argument. My argument is that people should stop using score systems. Let me just put that at the top of the thing. My argument is strategy game designers should stop using score systems. Just to be really clear. Yeah. Or like let's like make it a little bit lean away from using score systems. Yeah. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Oh, Hop's argument is that no one is doing score system right. And she sees the current damage done by current score system, but then doesn't give a clear way of doing it right. Yeah, so I don't know is she still working on like a new game? I guess we could ping her in the Discord chat real quick and ask. She's probably around. I should actually probably have pinged her a while ago. It looks like she's online and playing Noita, which is the current game design book club game. I need to advertise that more on this show, but we have a game design book club, and right now we're playing Noita. I have yet to download the game because I have to like buy it, and I'm like, ugh, do I want to really like spend money on a video game? It's the worst. Oh my god, fucking nightmare. Anyway, Hop, we're talking about score systems on the stream. You might want to catch up on it later because we already went over a bunch of stuff. But are you still working on a game of your own that shows some of your ideas in a more updated way than BBB? Because Hop did make a game called Brazen Berry Bonanza, which is usually people talk about it for its incredibly good soundtrack. Apparently the person who wrote the music to that was like an excellent composer. But it also is an example of Hop's ideas in practice. However, if you play Brazen Bear Bonanza, it's basically a high score game. It just has a par system. So I believe the way it works is like it averages out your last bunch of runs or something like that. And to me, that doesn't address all this stuff. Like it addresses the old high score systems problems. Like A little bit. I mean, I actually think that the match length is still an issue in these games, even with a par system. Let's just make a note about the par system. A par system. A par system still has the old game gets longer the better you get at it. Still has the quantified, like non-structural problems. Not sure we're on the same page. Let's say something like Risk. Oh yeah, Hair Machine. I didn't get to your thing yet. Sorry about that. Let's say something like Risk. You will win if you have the most territory, and the win basically tracks with that. Right. That's like a binary score goal, like Oro. Well, a bunch of randomness too, but essentially, sure, yeah. But I don't know, what were you getting at with that? That was you could have a fixed length game with a score, then you just got to be more efficient. Yes, you can say like after 10 turns, the game ends, that kind of thing. Maybe you can restate your point about the Risk game and how that's different from Oro. Yeah, I mean, so actually, let me. That's another good thing to add here. Just cap the number of turns to fix the what's it called, like EIE, or no wait, we want EG, right? Game ends. I guess you could use IE for this one also. Game ends after 20 turns to fix the expanding match length problem. And the response to that is... Oh, I didn't write response in all these responses. My bad. Then it's the same. You just have to... It has the same problems. You just have to, increase efficiency instead of, within those turns. Instead of the same other problems. I guess we should say other score problems. Within those turns instead of over a longer number of turns. Like, it doesn't really change anything, I think, to just cap the number of turns. Okay. You don't get points for territory, but it just makes you stronger. It's a positive feedback loop. So things are correlated quite strongly. Oh, I see what you're saying. So that's an example, like money. Like a lot of board games have gold or money, some kind of currency. And the objective of the game is to end up with the most currency, but you're also using the currency throughout. For what about race for most money, tabletop games like Bonanza, Chicago Express, etc. There's a ton of examples of those. Money by Knizia, or a territory race game where having more territory also, gives you more power throughout, etc. I mean, I think the word is race, right? I think which sort of nods to the problem somewhat. That there's like a sort of a contest kind of dynamic there. But yeah, like I think this one I have the weakest answer to, I guess, maybe. Towers in League are another thing like that. Yeah, but towers in League are not the goal. You can win in League of Legends having destroyed fewer towers. Lane pushedness is the goal, because all you have to do is push one lane all the way to the end and you win. But towers are just a resource that can be, that, you know, I've lost games where the opponents had more towers destroyed. Your troops are basically your score in Risk. I'm not sure. I forget what the actual goal of Risk is. Is it just eliminating all the other players? It's a fix, but I think we should be skeptical of fixed game length for other reasons. Yeah. I think actually maybe we could write that too. Fixed match length can cause other problems. I am generally skeptical of fixed match lengths in matches, in games, which has to do with the arcosphere and various lengths of arcs. A fixed length sort of flattens the dynamics. These dynamics. Your troops are not at all like your score. Any resource is not a score. I haven't played Risk in like at least 15 years, so I don't remember what the goal of Risk actually even is. I assume it's just domination, like you have to just wipe out the other players. In which case, actually, yeah, let's look it up. I wonder if we can just like find the rule book online. Is this Risk? Is this legit Risk? It looks like it. It's so old. Goal of the game is usually right in the beginning. This isn't really Risk, is it? This looks like fancier than I remember. Conquer the world. Yeah, but how is that actually? Like, what is the object of the game? Conquer the world by occupying every territory on the board. Okay, so it's elimination. So in that case, I don't know if I would call this a score-based game. This seems like a very binary thing. Like, you either occupy every territory. I'm not defending Risk. I mean, it has a lot of problems, but like, and yeah, there's like the snowballing problems. Risk is terrible. It's like one of the worst design games ever. But this is not a score-based game. It's a binary game. Right, yes, I agree. Which, like, it's funny, like, actually just reading this sentence and thinking about how it's a binary thing, like, I'm like, oh, I want to play Risk now. But then I think about all the other rules. You get exponential, yeah, in the late game. It's ridiculous. This manual is, like, the font and stuff makes it seem like Risk is such a more serious thing. How did someone write this much shit about Risk? Like, I thought Risk was like 4 pages max of rules. But I guess it's not. Wow. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, Risk is the worst. It's been a long time since I played it, though. I'm tempted to. Okay, so the point I was trying to get at was, you're really against these accumulation type mechanisms being too clear. Yes. Which I don't think is covered just by score versus binary. Well, so in the example of League of Legends and towers, it's very clear how many towers you've destroyed. But it's completely unclear the relationship between towers destroyed and whether you're going to win or not. Like, or it's, obviously if you have a massive gulf, if you have like 20 towers, or there's not even 20 towers in the game. If you have like, I don't know, 10 towers destroyed. Are there even 10 towers? I guess there, let's see, 4. Yeah, there's 10 towers. If you have 10 and they have 0, then it's safe to say you're winning. Yeah, it's okay as just sort of like extra information. I mean, it's impossible to have a system that doesn't have something like destroyed towers, number of things that you've destroyed. I I think it would be very difficult, maybe impossible, to make a game that doesn't have like numbers of things, you know, or number of times that a thing was achieved, or anything like that. I just realized some of my lights are off today after all that time. Let's take lane pushedness instead of destroyed towers. Yeah, but you know what's nice about lane pushedness is that even that's an interesting thing to think about. Lane pushedness. Is lane pushedness in League of Legends a score? Well, so there's a couple things that make it sort of not. Sort of. Like you could so the reason I would say no because it's pretty systemic, it's pretty structural. When you push a lane really far, it changes dynamics about, it changes everything. It changes so much about what's going on the whole map, really. The valuation of objectives, how easy they are to get and that kind of stuff. Jungle stuff, ability for players to farm, etc. KDA and golds correlate strongly with winning. Yeah, I agree. And actually, so my theory would be, how do we pull that away? So like, a statement is like, in League, KDA and gold correlate strongly with winning. My thing would be like, how do we reduce that correlation somewhat? Possibly. Not necessarily. Like, actually, maybe not even. I'm not even sure that's a problem. But you do. Yeah, I mean, I sort of do have a problem with gold in League. Gold is actually the closest thing to a score type problem that I have with League of Legends. Especially because of like last hitting. Like last hitting really embodies one of those things where like, really you have this huge advantage over me now because you sat there and successfully clicked on minions more times than I did. That's dreadful. And that's a really good example of like a score problem. Okay, so now let's say the following. This is Hair Machine. We add one new feature to League, which is a number that equals the most pushed lane. Yeah, I was thinking about this myself. And the final goal of the game is to get this number to 6 or whatever the next just would be numbered at. Yeah, so let's write this out. Let's follow this out. So League pushedness number. Quantifying pushedness. I guess each team has a lane pushedness. Well, see, it's. Yeah, okay. There is a lane pushedness number. Team A wants to get wins when lane pushedness reaches -10, and Team B wins when lane pushedness reaches 10. Lane pushedness is equal at any given time to the most pushed lane in the game, right? Does that kind of make sense? Hey, Peter Potato, how's it going? So yeah, I mean, this is like you can sort of already see just the way that I had to describe this and stuff, that it's really kind of like, you could write this on the thing, but it's like, there's so much going on there. You had a good stream today. Now I'm doing some cleaning. Nice. Yeah, yes. And I think like my theory would be like, the more complicated a game is, the less you want to score gold. Right. And I think strategy games need to be really complicated. Like responding to this, my response to this would be like, this kind of has is like a score. But going forward, if I were in charge of League, I would make changes that make this less and less like a score. With that said, it is also, like, I guess I just want to add a caveat, you know, I don't know how to word my caveat, but I have one somewhere in there. I think I want to demonstrate that that just having that something that looks like a score doesn't have the problems of being too clear. I guess, but like, does lane pushing this really look like a score? I feel like it doesn't. But this is one of those things where it's like, you know, things are kind of ambiguously defined a little bit. But I wouldn't say League of Legends has a score. I would say League of Legends has a binary. It's you know what I mean? Like there's other things that feed into that binary outcome, but ultimately it's like destroy the opponent's nexus. Period. That's it. If you can find out a way to do that without pushing a lane too much, you can you can win that way too. Sure. Yeah. So let's see, because you have all these other mechanisms that feed into that number, which are very ambiguous. Yes, that's kind of what I'm talking about. That's the structural aspect. You literally can't. Oh, thanks for giving me a host, Pete Potato. I appreciate that. Yeah, like I don't know how much more we're going to talk about this, but I think this is good. So ultimately, I want to like finish this sort of argument here because they are. They quantify, like they reward short loops, quantify what should remain more qualitative or ambiguous. Like we should say like game states which should remain more are sort of anti-structural and also have been done, and also on top of all that, well, what's a good way of putting this? And also because they've just been done too much. You know, I do think it is like, at the end of the day, it's worth just doing something else. You know, it's like if I was writing this article about health and hit points and that kind of stuff, actor removal, which I think I have similar complaints about with this. You know, one of the final arguments I would make is like, on top of all the other stuff, it's like a good reason to try this is because it hasn't really been tried. Plenty of binary games as well. I don't think there are that many, especially in the single player space. I think there aren't that many binary games. Let's try to think about some binary games. Like League is one. Yeah. Like sports are all score based. Most board games are score based. All the old board games are binary. Is that true? Like Monopoly is not binary, I feel like. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is I'm not sure. Chess is binary. Checkers. Yeah, oh yeah, ancient abstracts are. You're right. Yes, that's true. Yeah, I think also you're right that a lot of games I should maybe add, like particularly in single player games. Another note I want to make So here's something that really sucks, and that this is like a backwards way of getting at the issue. This is like maybe a backdoor entrance to the issue, which is to a much bigger issue. So it's very, very easy to slap a high score system on almost any game and have it work. So like you can have you have some like dynamics, some rules, some like things, some mechanisms and components and things like that, and it's very, if you have a score system, it kind of just works. There's like especially if it's like a high score system is like self balancing, or at least seems that way. Works in a toy-like sense. Where the player is taking on a lot of the responsibility of making sure basically that the system is fun, that the system is working. And that's why a lot of like roguelikes come to mind, where roguelikes have all these what are those things called in roguelikes where you like prescribe all these special rules, like doing a blankety blank run or whatever. There are score-like structures in all these games, though. I'm not sure how you get away from it. Yeah, I'm not against. Let me add another note that I'm not against that determine the outcome of the match. That's crucial. Other numeric values throughout the match are totally fine and, in fact, unavoidable. Right. Battle Royales and Counter-Strike are binary. Let's see. Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Certainly Battle Royales. Counter-Strike, yeah. Counter-Strike even more so, I would say. Very clearly. I guess that's another note that we can make. Other note. Places. That's kind of related. I.e. First place, second place, etc. This is kind of like a score system. So and this is a critique I have of Battle Royale. A lot of tabletop games are thought of this way. Like we want to say like FFA tabletop games are thought of this way. Not TFT, auto chess, etc. My sort of response to this is that first place is winning. Everything else is not winning. But the places concept sort of does a similar thing as score by binary-ifying the thing, and sort of works. Places attempt to anti-binary-fy. There's probably a word for binary-fy. Is that a word? No. Wow, that's a word. Okay. Anti-binarify. Fortnite was first or you lose. Well, I mean, it is, but I think it tells you when you came in second and third and fourth and whatever. I don't know about Fortnite, but I know that in auto chess, at least in TFT, in the first 4 places, you actually gain MMR, which is but binaire is not a word. Yeah, right? Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted here. It's misleading saying you got second or third. Okay, in Fortnite, that's fine. But I think it's less misleading and actually... anyway, let me finish my sentence here. Places attempt to anti-binarify binary systems. What was the other thing? Auto chess gives MMR for getting first through fourth place, which is a good example, I think, of the way that score just makes everything kind of like worked out, sort of automatically. The ambiguity too of like places, and it's like, well, am I going for second place? Am I going for third place? Am I going, like you can go for second place. That could be your goal. And so when you get second place, what does that mean about your strategy? As opposed to just losing, or as opposed to getting eighth place. So it becomes, so this is a good example. How is getting second place, like how do I, as a player, compare getting second place or fourth place with eighth place or sixth place? And this would be a good example of why more information is not the same as better feedback, responding to the hop claim. Yeah, you got second place. Second place, which is better than third place, but not as good as first place. But thinking about like the quality of your moves throughout the match, you were going for first place. Does it mean, sometimes it could mean in certain situations because of the way that, dynamics work. Like maybe you had an arc that was just about to pay off big time and you were going to get first place, but you got like fifth place. So now I have this like weird scale of numbers that I have to compare against my whole thing, as opposed to just binary, win or loss. That's why I think it's really valuable to have that binary outcome at the end, because it's totally unambiguous. And then we can start from there, this place of like actual clear meaning, and then work our way back through the system and be like, okay, well, what did I do here? And okay, clearly this worked because I won. Whereas it's like, if you go and review a game where you got fourth place out of 8, like what does it mean if you get fourth place? Right? Like, is it a draw? Like, what can you draw? Did you learn anything from this? Is it possible to learn anything from this match? I think a fourth place is like, and it's the same problem with par. The same problem applies to par. If I got par, is that good? Like is that, what do I learn? What have I learned from this match? It's impossible to learn anything if you have a par score that you usually get, and then you get par. It's basically the same as a draw. It's like the game is called off. Let's see. Going from 10th to 2nd shows improvement. Probably. But and like when they get really extreme like that, sure. But what about like 4th to 3rd, or 5th to 3rd? It starts getting a lot more weird, and like maybe it doesn't mean improvement, because I was going for 1st, and it's possible that someone who came in 5th actually was like playing better and had like was actually trying smarter things than the person who came in 3rd or something, because the objective wasn't to come in third or fifth. It was first, and it's a different animal. Let's see. What else we got here? Just trying to say that clear goals are better than ambiguous ones. Right. I agree with that. Having two different goals is weird. I agree also. You have one goal, which is to come first. Right. But it just has a rank. So feedback is an integer and not a Boolean. That's the only difference here. Yeah, but when it's, that's what I'm saying is that there's not any more or less meaning, just more bits of information. I'm trying to make this clear here that sometimes more information can have less meaning, or because it's harder to judge like what fourth place out of 8 means. So after I play auto chess and I get fourth place, actually I don't, let's assume, just for the sake of this, assume auto chess has 7 players instead of 8. If I get fourth place, what does this mean about my play? I think this is the laserest way to get to what I'm trying to say here. The most direct way. There's not any more or less meaning. What I'm saying is it's hard to draw something, a conclusion from this, right? It's like, it is comparable to if I had not played at all in the amount of feedback it's giving me, right? Because like I already like sort of had a basic understanding of like my general skill level or whatever. And like the ELO has that concept, right? Like if I'm playing online, there's like an account that has like my ELO MMR information or whatever. And it like basically has an idea of like where I'm at. So it matches me against these players who are like basically at my level. And then I play and I get fourth place. How is that distinct from me not playing? I actually don't disagree, but I think this is actually a problem of arbitrary ranks. So that also applies if there are 2 ranks. There are 2 ranks? 2 ranks is binary, right? Winner and loser. Basically depends on who the other people are in the context of the rank. Yeah, so like I think what you're saying there is like this is so let me paint a picture of why more information usually means, like very often, let's just say means worse feedback. I'm playing against like you know, something like this, like auto chess results. First place, super badass player. Second place, good player. Or like, you know, like let's say we should do like my ELO plus 10. So like yeah, let's say I'm like a silver. I'm a silver 3 auto chess player, right? My ELO plus 10, my ELO plus 3, third place, my ELO, it could be like -2, fourth place, me, fifth place, my ELO plus 1, it could be sixth place, my ELO minus 10, seventh place, my ELO, exactly, could be like this. And now you're gonna tell me that even though there's more information here, that like I'm actually gonna draw like a conclusion from this. This is like the most noisy, like I don't know how to draw anything from this that's better than not having played. Does that make sense? Like, where as opposed to, so this is option 1. More information, right? Getting all this information about your players, the players you're playing against, and the rank that you got. Option 2. You won. Way less information. Way less information. But way better feedback. Horrible feedback. Less information, excellent feedback. Like rock solid feedback. You see what I'm saying? What do you mean, why do I think this is clear feedback? How is this terrible? This is like rock solid. It's simple, it's clear. The thing you did worked. Whereas this is like, relative to what? Relative to your 50% win rate. Well, relative to how, same problem as with the rank. No, because this is like, I don't know if I played well or not. This is like, I played well because I won. This is like, was the things I did good? I don't know. This is like, the things I did were good. On some level, like to some extent, you know, the things I did were good enough to get me to win. You can win and play like crap. Is that really true? Okay. If your opponent... No. Opponent being hungover, no. We're not using those kind of things. Like, it's a 50% thing. You're playing against an opponent that is not, you know, have a serious head injury or something like that. You're playing against someone of comparable skill, you know, in sound mind, or a one-player game where you have a 50% chance to win. It's like, it's single-player eloed against your ability, right? And so you have a 50% chance to win, and you won. That means very clearly that the things that you did worked. To say, it's okay, the concept you can win and play like crap is definitionally untrue. This is like, you know, playing like crap means playing in a way that causes you to lose. Playing well is defined by playing in a way that causes you to win. Playing like crap means and is defined by playing in a way that causes you to lose. Period. All it requires is the other player plays worse. Yeah, so I mean, there is some amount of like variance there. And this is so actually I know the answer to that one. That's a good one. Hair machine, you nailed it. Yes, and this is why one player is the optimal number of players for a strategy game. Because other humans can do like weird shit and just like play way below their level and stuff like that. Computer, you can control more for that kind of stuff. It can be more solid. Because sometimes this will happen, you know, like and that sort of messes up your ability to like trust this, right? Why can't a rank be useful over time? You get a direction rather than losing and not knowing anything. Now I should say also, like caveat, all games, single player or otherwise, have some degree of variance and noise that's, you know, that's going to distort some outcomes right? So like you never get to 100% pure feedback in a system with, you know, any amount of randomness. Anyway, get a pure 100% perfect feedback ratio. The Crouch Mode says, this discussion that cements my view that feedback doesn't matter. Interesting. That's weird. The only thing we should look at is which one of these produces a better game for the player within the match. I don't know. That's like... I don't see how that's useful as a statement. Whatever analysis happens after the game is completely irrelevant. I super disagree with that. I think so much of games happen after the game. And between games, between matches. But yeah, I don't know if I can exactly directly take that on right now. Again, with this chess example, most good chess games are defined by some player making a massive error until you get quite good. Yeah, and I mean, chess is like a very small, simple thing. I think at one point somebody said something about like how, you know, yeah, I have a lot of problems with chess. You can do all sorts of things right and lose. Right, but that doesn't mean that you played well. You know, if you lost against a player that you had a 50% win rate against, a balanced opponent, and you lost, definitionally you didn't play well because you lost. Or like, you know, maybe it's an overstatement to say you didn't play well, but it's like, you know, you played on the bad side of quality. Why is how the goal affects decisions within the match not what we should focus on? Well, we should. I think we should focus on that. I mean, I think we have to focus on a number of things. I'll respond to that formally. The crouch mode. Your name looks wrong with a capital T. We should focus on that as well, I think. But the way strategy games work is over a long period of time playing many matches, and feedback is the way that players learn about the game. Sometimes you lose because of random elements, so you do exceptionally good. Others, your opponent do pretty good, and you still lose this match. Yeah, I mean, and part of the job of a designer is to try to minimize those sort of things. In a game with variance over a large enough sample size, a game with a binary goal will produce better feedback. Yeah, that's another thing, too. We haven't even talked about that. There's so many of these little subtopics, but that's a really good. Thanks for bringing that up, EY Priest. I'm just going to put this like here. I think all games need some randomness. And we can link this to the info horizon. Over a large enough sample size, the game with a binary goal will produce better feedback. Because you actually don't want... that's another thing that... this is another point. This is... Sorry, I added Keith edit. Sure, there we go. Weird notation system here. A binary goal produce better feedback. Advantage to less information in the feedback is that random variance details, i.e. a monster spawned slightly in a disadvantageous spot on turn 37 or something have more opportunity to get smoothed out and made appropriately irrelevant, right? Or like maybe that's not the right way of putting it. Appropriately relevant, actually, to the final outcome. Right, and the randomness, and yes, so of course we have to assume that the randomness will not cause players to lose. If randomness is causing players to lose, that you have bigger problems. Yeah. What if it does cause you to lose some small percentage of the time? Yeah, I think it should just never cause you to lose. But I mean, it's hard maybe to demonstrate in a sufficiently complex system because of like these butterfly effect type of things, right? Like on turn 10, yeah. All right, I actually have to wrap up. Time went pretty fast today. This was 2 hours. I was actually only planning on going like an hour and a half today. We could talk about this for probably another hour and a half. But I will post this in the Discord. And if anyone has thoughts or whatever, I'll make it that anyone has the link can comment if anyone wants to leave comments. And we can do like a part 2 on this next time if you want. We'll probably be talking about it for the next 3 centuries. We have been talking about this for years. Yeah. And, I guess I could just add one thing of like, there is an aesthetic quality. Actually, one of my biggest critiques of binary outcomes is kind of like the binary systemification, like, quantifying everything nature of strategy games. I don't know how to get around that. Like, I don't know how we can, because like scores also have that, right? Like they have some kind of like measurement of you and your ability. And I think that maybe that's something fundamental to strategy games. Whereas like, toys on like a social level, I appreciate that like toys can, like you just built a house and the score is your house that you built. And it's just like this little piece of art that you made. And it's, it's probably more social and more reflective of like what human life is, what's nice and good about human life. And maybe strategy games, a reason to be like a little bit skeptical of them is the way that they, as I post that Naomi Clark talk a lot, but the way that they sort of paint this little universe where everything is like, input in, like, put in the resources, you get something out. Put something in, you get something out. Very like systemic and clear and like calculatable. And I do want to make strategy games that are less like that. But that is a fundamental quality to strategy games, and I guess maybe that's not terribly relevant here because, but maybe it's a little bit relevant because like maybe score-based games, especially if they don't have a goal at all, like I guess you could say, well, what you could say is like something like a Tetris or a roguelike, it doesn't have a clear score goal or anything. So you can just play and you get some number and that number's fine. Whatever that number is, it's all good. But then it's a toy at that point, right? Like if you're actually playing it in that way where you embrace I can't really do anything wrong or better or worse. It's like, yeah, it's going to spit out some number at the end. Like, I don't really care what that number is. I'm here for the, experience and playing around with it. Then it's really entered into like the toy mode. And yeah, I feel like you comparing fourth to winning is unfair. You need to compare first to winning. No, I wasn't comparing fourth to winning. Just responding to a couple things. I was comparing fourth to, if anything, fourth is more like ties. How do you guys feel about ties? You know how like in some sports and stuff, like you can tie or draw. I feel that if a game has a lot of draws or ties, that the game designer has fucked up and made a mistake. somewhere in the process there. Like there should not be ties coming out of games. And similarly, fourth place is similar to a tie in that it's like, I don't know how to distinguish between this and not having played the game. Ties are not, yeah. He gives the example that fourth doesn't give good information, but winning does, right. But the comparison should have been between first and winning. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think for aesthetic reasons, I agree, no ties, but I don't think there's really a formal problem there if a draw is like a distinct state, so ties are fine. Yeah, I mean, I could argue about this more, but I'm going to wrap it up for now. But anyway, thank you everyone for coming by. Don't forget we have a Game Design Book Club. It's Noita right now. I'm going to download that at some point if I ever find some time. And what else? We have you can still submit a game tonight for the what's it called? What is that thing called? The Stranding Jam. I have a game, and I need to submit it, but it's like I don't have time, which is also why I have to stop streaming now. Thank you everyone for coming by. Red Moth, Crouch Mode, Hair Machine, UI Priest, yeah, and I will see you guys in chat, and I'll post this in chat and catch you around. Thanks for coming. Bye bye.